is Nicole Harris, Scott Harris, who is also a graduate of Rutgers, Newark. Nicole did her undergraduate
and grad school. And I have 3 degrees, but I did my first 2.
So the undergraduate is in sociology and African American studies, and she has an MA in political science from over there. But you know, I'm in both departments, so like.
Yeah.
And Nicole took the global environmental issues class. Like I
took a class. I don't know. It's too long ago.
I remember you were in my class.
With my master's in 2010.
Yes.
Undergrad, I graduated in 2006.
Yeah. So I remember you when you were in my graduate class.
Yes, I was in grad school.
Yeah. She was also a Rutgers Eagleton Fellow, that program with the Eagleton program in New Brunswick, which is very prestigious. And she holds a BS in Nutrition and Dietetics from Montclair State University as well. And Nicole Scott Harris serves as the coordinator of education and outreach for New Jersey Environmental Justice Alliance based in Newark. And during her tenure, she's had the opportunity to lead coordination of the 2014 Coalition for Healthy Ports Newark Mayoral Forum on good jobs, healthy neighborhoods, and a clean environment. And she also worked a multi-year effort with partner organizations towards the passage of the landmark 2016 Environmental Justice and Cumulative Impacts Ordinance in the city of Newark. And today, Nicole is going to talk about Between Zones, the urgent case for an environmentally just Newark and planet. And we're really looking forward to hearing about this. Thank you, Nicole, for coming.
Did everybody see the description of what I was going to talk about?
It was sent out, yes.
Okay, everybody saw it. So, besides some of the experience that Dr. Kooning talked about, I had. I also, when I first came out of school, I would say my real job. I had a real job before. I worked at the police department, but while I was in school, but not as a police officer. But I went into work into government and politics. I became a congressional aide, and the time that I did that was when Barack Obama was running for president for the first time, so it was a crazy time. I worked a midterm election in New Jersey, which was just like a seasonal campaign job, and I did some work for a labor union with politics in New York City, and they sent me different other places too where I got to stay for shorter amounts of time, like Memphis, Tennessee, and I got to go someplace in Massachusetts and Vermont for a month to do some organizing. So I just say that to say, like, everything that I look at from a political lens. I like to consider myself a recovering political addict. I actually don't pay a lot of attention to the news like I used to, but when I was in high school, I had a John Corzine bumper sticker on my block, and my friend thought it was the most, like, she thought I was trying to be ironic, and I really wasn't. But you know, so I was watching, like, I was paying attention to politics and like watching CNN and when Bush ran for re-election, that was the first election I voted, and I was so immersed and so engaged in my television, would constantly be on like political news channels, and now because I was doing it when it wasn't cool, now it's really cool to do. I'm kind of bored with it, but it's really, really important. So the urgent case for an environmentally just Newark in between zones, and the zones I'm talking about here are sacrifice zones. You all familiar with that terminology prior to this class? Anybody? Okay. What's the name of this class?
This is a colloquium, so it's not a crowd. They have a speaker every week on various aspects of
on the environment.
On the environment, yeah.
But everybody is DGA majors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then opportunity zones. So like even in, so those are the two zones we're talking about. But even in my own research, I realized that there's like various types of, or multiple definitions for the same term. So specifically with the opportunity zone thing, because it was just like development lingo, and then it turned into like legislation. So it's like a thing that planners would use to classify a place, just broadly speaking, but now it's also a legal designation because there's certain kind of benefits to investing in these areas. So that law just passed, I think, at the end of last year. So defining the terminology. So like I said, an opportunity zone is a place that's been designated or classified as such because it's considered to be some kind of way economically depressed or could benefit from some focused investment, right? But me being who I am, I'm a social justice person. I don't like to look at things just from a financial perspective because I don't think that puts human beings at the center of the conversation. A lot of these topics around these opportunity zones, I really try to find somebody on video who I feel like could give like an objective kind of assessment of it, and like everybody who I could find talking about opportunity zones were people who probably would benefit or profit in some way, like they have some kind of business in it. So I didn't really feel like I found any like objective assessment where I can say the pros and cons on the one hand, on the other hand. But basically, to me, it seems like a form of trickle-down economics. It was, sorry, I just want to change my view so I can see. Oh well, I don't think it's gonna work that way. Actually, I don't think it should. Yeah. So basically, these opportunity zones, you can see how Forbes even describes it, and this is not a social justice magazine. An unlikely group of billionaires and politicians has created the most unbelievable tax break ever. And so it said this law that just passed, officially called the Investing in Opportunity Act, it promises to pump a massive amount of cash into America's most impoverished communities by offering wealthy investors and corporations a chance to erase their tax obligations. Yeah, it's interesting, but it's like they come in, they don't have to pay taxes until 2026, and then if they like take the proceeds of whatever investment that they made in Newark and put it into a special account and let it sit there for 10 years, then they don't have to pay taxes on that. They let it sit there, and then when they take that out, they're just getting their profits with no taxes having been paid. In the city of Newark, and not just the city of Newark, the United States, in urban centers, there's a long history of what are called pilots or pay in lieu of taxes, or these special programs for money interest in order to be able to come and to make investments inside urban centers. So you see what it says, Newark poverty rate is 29%, and it's identifying the pros of it is North Liberty International Airport, sweet commute, 15 miles from New York, affluent suburbs, town and gown, Rutgers, Newark, Seton Hall Law, New Jersey Institute of Technology, Prudential Center, and New Jersey Performing Arts Center. The main thing that stood out to me is that this is not centered around like the average North resident. Like these are not even services or attractions that the average North resident is even thinking about on a day-to-day basis. So it's just, like I said, it seems like a form of trickle-down economics to me. So I'm just kind of cynical of the idea that this is actually going to have some long-term effects. But I want you to understand what opportunity zone is. And Newark was identified, I want to say, in the top 10 of opportunity zones by another organization, used that terminology, Locust Smart Growth America, that comes out with a report every year. And I think Newark tied for like 6th place or something. So a lot of eyes on Newark, a lot of people want to come here to make investments and things of that nature. And this state of New Jersey map just shows like the opportunity zone throughout the entire state. For Newark and Jersey City were the only two that were like identified as like high ranking, like the best places to like put your money. And the other thing about these opportunity zones is that they don't have any restrictions on what kind of investments you can make. Right? So it's up to the state to make those regulations. So just because somebody wants, I really want to make this very clear up front and early, just because you make an investment in Newark doesn't mean you're invested in Newark. An investment and being invested are two different things. Because if you're just making an investment and your investment looks like it's going left, you're going to pull out your money, you're going to go about your business. You're not really concerned about how it's going to affect the existing community or anything like that. So that's a big thing just to understand. And sacrifice zones, I'm going to play these 2 videos. Each of them are like 2 minutes each. The first one is by one of my board members, Dr. Ana Baptista. The second one is the trailer for the documentary, This Changes Everything. If you haven't seen this, like 3 or 4 years old, I definitely strongly recommend that you see it. And so I think video is a powerful medium, so I'm just going to use a little bit of it.
Spaces where environmental degradation and communities of color and low-income communities coincide are fertile spaces for gaining insight into the ecological and economic processes that are often hidden from our society. If you look closely, you can see these sacrifice zones all around the world. These are places that Carolyn Merchant calls places of otherness, constructed in contrast to the images of the American Eden. Out of sight, out of mind, this is the reality of most environmental justice communities, our society's dirty little secret. You flush your toilet, you throw out your trash, you turn on your lights. All of these simple daily acts reverberate in the communities that are at the points of extraction, production, transport, and waste dumping. These are the products of a racially segregated throwaway society that lives a comfortable existence at the expense of sacrifice zones. The creation of these spaces is no mere coincidence of the marketplace, and the question of how to systematically dismantle them and build more just places endures. The emergence of the environmental justice movement has been a powerful antidote to the entrenched problems of environmental inequality. For more than 40 years, communities have mounted fierce resistance to the material inequalities and the misrecognition that threaten their very survival. These communities speak for themselves, and they are at the forefront of a radical approach to dismantling the geographies of injustice. In places at the margins where society has hidden its dirty little secrets about the real impacts of economic growth, white privilege, and environmental destruction, there is an opportunity for transformative change. Environmental justice requires that we link together the physical spaces that allow metropolitan areas like this great city to prosper, as well as the collective impulses that can make more just communities. Environmental justice too demands that we do the hard work of making these places, these sacrifice zones, visible to all, felt by all, and tackled by all, so that we have the hope of redemption and justice.
So Anna's born and raised in Newark, actually from the Iron Down. And her parents still live there. So she was actually involved in protesting things like from when she was in high school all the way up to now. Okay, this is
The majority of the human race does not see global warming as a serious threat. Celebrate! Climate legislation is dead.
We, in the global north, with less than 20% of the population, are responsible for over 70% of global emissions.
We are drilling all over the place.
On the other side of the world, those people who are the most affected by climate change, most affected by environmental injustice, have the least responsibility for creating this crisis in the first place.
Hindi lang mga batu, sir. Ini, sir,
Inililata ako na ba?
The amount of fossil fuel that we're combusting year on year is growing. We're going in completely the wrong direction.
I've spent 6 years wandering through the wreckage caused by the carbon in the air and the economic system that put it there.
That old paradigm will be forced to change, either by the environment around us or by us.
You see communities who are thrown into the front line. You see the incredible transformation. They become stronger, they stand up.
So here's the big question. What if global warming isn't only a crisis? What if it's the best chance we're ever going to get to build a better world? Change or be changed?
There are limits. Let's celebrate the limits because we can reinvent a different future.
That's like the last movie I seen in a movie theater. I don't watch TV. I'm like, really, become a reclusive type person, especially about media. You gotta protect your mind because there's all kinds of information out there that's trying to distract you. So sacrifice zones are that, and there are places, sacrifice zones all over the United States, all over the country. Broadly speaking, when we talk about environmental justice, I think of that as a terminology that relates to the environmental racism, specifically in the United States. Historically, people of color, and still now, people of color, majority live in polluted areas. You can find it. It's an equation. It's not a discussion. It's not even. It's just a math problem. You just put it inside. This algorithms will tell you. They got charts from DEP, that New Jersey DEP, that show you the direct correlation between the higher the number of people in poverty, the higher the amount of pollution, the higher the number of people of color, the higher amount of pollution. So it's not really debatable. But there are, like I said, sacrifice zones all over this country. When we talk about climate justice, I generally think about that as the globe. So, like the Charlotte we just watched said, like we produce 70% of the carbon emissions, but we're only like 20% of the population. And then the impacts of the individuals who are being most directly and immediately impacted are places that are like the warmest parts of the world, that are not using anywhere near the amount of resources or emitting anywhere near the amount of pollution as we emit per person or collectively as a country. So that's just an important thing to understand, to make sure we're understanding the terminology, and I'm not talking past you. So this is a bunch of headlines. All of this stuff is like in the last 5 years, most of it in the last 2 years. So I really wanted you to get a sense of like what's going on in New Jersey, right? If Newark is a child and New Jersey is his parent, right? So how is the state leading by example on what's going on historically with the environmental conditions in New Jersey right now? This is from 2018. This comes from the American Heart Association. It's specifically on ozone, which is a type of pollutant. And it shows you that all the places where so these white places, they don't have air monitors to collect data, so no data collected. But New Jersey is mostly red. We get an F for ozone. And then this is the article that came out last year. New Jersey is one of the fastest warming states in the U.S. Global sea levels can rise 8 feet by 2100. Some of us might be here, I don't know. But and they're suspecting more in New Jersey. And then Dirty Little Secrets. This was a combined effort between WNYC and some other people. some other media outlets in New Jersey, like kind of like an in-depth expose on like what's really going on in New Jersey's environment, and they basically found like that New Jersey's poorest live surrounded by contamination. So it's not just like poor air quality or like poor water quality. Is going to be more contaminated lands. Like for instance, in North, I don't know if you're aware, you can't grow food in the ground. Most of the places you have to have plant boxes because the soil is too contaminated to safely grow food. So that's just another thing to consider. Air pollution in New Jersey is so bad it could be dangerous to your health to breathe. This came out also last year. Not just Jersey City and Newark, all of New Jersey suffer from dirty air. And this one, I don't really like to touch on words too much because I'm not equipped to really answer a lot of questions about it, but I did think it was important to have this article up here from 2016, why 11 New Jersey cities have more lead-infected kids than Flint, Michigan. And so that's from 2016. This whole conversation around lead just reemerged actually last year, again with the city here, but it really never went away. And because I don't watch the news, I almost had to be like, I had to do research, like, why is this coming back up again? This never went away. They never fixed this thing. Why is this coming back up? But it was because a large mainstream environmental organization filed a lawsuit. So they had a lot of resources and they brought a lot of attention to the issue. But in general, New Jersey doesn't have the best track record in the world in general. So, you know, I wanted to provide this context so that it's not like, oh, well, why is Newark not doing the best things it could be doing? Okay, so digging a little bit more into New Jersey. So New Jersey is 1,300, roughly 1,344 active Superfund sites. You all know what Superfund sites are? Superfund sites are the most toxic sites in the country. I was going to say on the planet. In the country, right? The most toxic sites in the country it is so toxic that the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency has given it this special designation of a Superfund site. So New Jersey has the highest number in the country. We got 117. We got 6 in Newark. 6. I think Newark is number 2, and it's because I just saw Tampa has 8. Tampa, Florida has 8. So Newark has 6 out of the 115, and then we have the largest Superfund site in the country, which is the Passaic River. We have the most, and we got the biggest. So we the best. New Jersey is home to over 14,000 contaminated sites. So a contaminated site is not the same thing as a Superfund site. It's just like a more lower grade level of contamination. It's not so severe that they designate it as a Superfund site. So we have over 14,000 contaminated sites, approximately 10% with no cleanup place and plan, and 89% of New Jersey residents live within 1 mile of a contaminated site. And I already told you it's the 3rd fastest warming, so this is the warming map, and you get to see like the states that are warming the fastest. You see what's going on with New Jersey. So you see New Jersey is the 3rd, and this is 89% of New Jersey residents contaminated site. There's nowhere to go. So the state will be responsible for like making these decisions about these opportunity zones and dictating a lot of decisions around focus on economic investments and what the state's priorities are, right? And so I just wanted to point out that as much as we're in the Northeast and we weren't a slave state, New Jersey is a part of the United States. Right? Racism is a part of the United States. It's in the seeds. So every aspect of our society, even in New Jersey, you can find disparities. Right? Whether it's education, housing, healthcare, income, incarceration, we already talked about pollution, and even electoral power. So my question is, not to you, but I just posed a question, why would I trust the state to make decisions with opportunities on resources that's in the best interest of the least among us if you haven't been able to show me anything about your ability to do that, really. So, I mean, it's going to sound really nice, and it's going to seem like, oh, this person wants to come here. A lot of, they throw celebrity names on it. For celebrities and politicians who have been in elected office for a long time are very disconnected from the day-to-day life experience of the average person. That's I'm a big, strong proponent of term limits. When people become insulated into this bubble, they really lose a degree of, I think, compassion. So this is important. I even wanted to say electoral politics because it makes it seem like, oh, well, anybody could vote, you should vote, blah, blah, blah. But in this last governor's election, we spent $79 million, not we, they. Campaigns spent $79 million. And also so it was the most expensive election ever in history and also the lowest turnout ever. So that means he paid more money per vote than any elected official, any governor in New Jersey history. And he spent 3 times more than his strongest opponent. So to me, that's not encouraging. I don't like to see. That's not an indication of any. And I think it was like 38% voter turnout. So 38% of the entire state of elected eligible voters participated in the last gubernatorial election. So that means, what is that? 62%? Not. That means also that whoever wins only gets a portion of that 38%. So that means that this person was only elected by a very actual small percentage of people who actually live in New Jersey. And politicians like to come in on narratives and these mantras, and they have a mandate and this and that, the other thing. And if you're not getting at least 50% voter turnout, nobody has a mandate because you're not representing the will of the voters because the voters are not showing up because they're so either disengaged and jaded and disillusioned with the process that they're just not even tuned into what's going on. So, be careful with the headlines because that's their job. They pay a lot of people a lot of money to do that for them, just to create these narratives and to create this kind of publicity. So, oh yeah, that's the other thing I wanted to say. So 74% of New Jersey residents who live below the poverty line are living within a mile of a contaminated site with no plan in place. I already explained that to you, compared to half of residents who are not below the poverty line. 79% of the state's Hispanic population and 75% of the state's Black population lives within a mile of a site with no cleanup plan, compared to 42% of whites. And in terms of New Jersey's increased temperature, like the average temperature across the country has been like 1.6 degrees from 1988 to 2017, and New Jersey's is 2.19. So we're like I said, significantly higher. And because of that, there's going to be a lot of risk to our coastal sea lines, and different parts of the coast are going to be more vulnerable than others. I think in certain places like Bayonne, and Bayonne's not far from here, and I want to say Jersey City. I was already started to speak. But Bayonne and it says some other places, not the coastal areas, like those. It says Bayonne is the water is gonna rise higher. So that makes me think if in an area like Bayonne, if the water is gonna rise higher, I think because it said the sea level is lower or something. Then Bayonne is not far from Newark. Like Newark, we also have like this riverfront that they're trying to like develop as much as possible, and I will tell you who it was, but I've been in meetings with people who I felt like should have been able to answer questions about like what kind of contingency plans is the state and the city making to adapt for development at the riverfront post Sandy, and I really didn't get a good answer. And it's almost like it was an inconvenient question. I was in a meeting with my supervisor and I thought I was asking dumb questions, and then we left out. She was like, "He didn't answer any of your questions." I was like, I thought my questions weren't making sense because he couldn't answer any of them. So anyway, yeah, it's very concerning. Okay, so Newark is New Jersey's most populous city. So this is why we talk about Newark. Newark is the 70th most populous city in the country. They have this list of like 760 something cities. Newark is 70th, so that's pretty high. Like technically the top 10%. Yeah. So anytime we talk about Newark, I feel like both because of its proximity to New York City, but also because of the number of people here, I feel like we're talking about so many people being impacted. It's about 11,000 people per square mile in the city of Newark. One of the most densely populated cities. So not only is it one of the most populous cities, but the most densely populated, as New Jersey is the most densely populated state in the country. We have like a lot of people here in a small amount of space. And then considering how many people are being impacted by these pollution impacts, like you might see a place on another part of the map that has the same color of a pollution scale as Newark, but they probably don't have anywhere near the amount of people. So in terms of like the actual amount of people whose lives are being impacted, is a big deal. So the median income for Newark is around 33,000, while the state is around 76,000. So that is about less than half. It's about, I think I saw the last unemployment numbers for like 4.4 for the state, and it's like 6.3 for Newark. So Newark is also disproportionately higher levels of unemployment and underemployment. And if you know anything about how they actually count unemployment statistics, at a certain point, if you stop looking for work, they stop counting you as unemployed. So real unemployment numbers are deflated because at a certain point they stop recognizing you as a person who's unemployed. So you're not in their numbers. This is the big thing about Newark to point out. Okay, so Newark is home to Newark International Airport, the 15th busiest airport in the country, the second in this area, the closest to Manhattan, right? Then Port Newark, and then next is Port Elizabeth, which is off the map. Then Penn Station, which is the major transit hub for the entire state of New Jersey. Then you see all of these highways. And this is a regular map. Like if it was green space on here, you would see it. Like right here in Jersey City, you see Liberty State Park. But in this concentration of like industry in Newark, there's like hardly any green space. Like no green space. And well, why does that matter? Because trees and greenery help provide us with fresh air as part of the filtration process. It also helps to reduce heat, the impact of heat, because, and we'll go into that a little bit more on another slide, but it's a big deal, and green space impacts stormwater management in terms of the ability of the ground to actually soak up the amount of water that's being, that's rain or snow or whatever it is. And then also, not just stormwater management, but also like I lost my train of thought, so I don't want to stay too long on this slide. But yeah, it's so the green space is important for stormwater management and just quality of life. That's what I want to say. Quality of life. You need green space. Like, where do these people who live in this area go if they want to go run, right? They just have to run wherever they are, right? So that's a big deal. Newark is home to the largest seaport on the East Coast. you guys know about like Port Newark, Port Elizabeth. It's a number of jobs there that are really well paid, but it's a highly polluting operation. And a lot of the well-paid positions tend not to go to people who live in Newark. Majority of them do not. So it's like as if Newark is getting all the pollution and none of the profits. That's what we tend to say. And it's not, like I said, not just Newark. You see places like this where you get, you know, majority of the pollution and really none of the financial benefits. So they'll throw out some kind of like high figure number that the city of Newark gets from the Port Authority on a yearly basis. But if you actually consider the fact that the Port Authority is operating this port on publicly owned land, and from what the mayor said, I think 1/6 of the privately owned or city-owned land is in some way operated by an entity controlled by the Port Authority. So, or 1/6 of the land in the entire city, sorry. So the airport is partially controlled by the Port Authority. The Port Authority controls the port of Newark, and then it also controls or has some share inside the incineration facility. So Newark also has the largest incinerator. I believe on the East Coast, we burn garbage in that incinerator for at least 4 counties and parts of New York City. And when that incinerator was being proposed in the Ironbound, a lot of those community members fought against it and lost because they anticipated that their communities were going to be turned into a dumping ground. And the only way you make money off of incineration is burning garbage. So you're incentivized to produce trash and find places who want to give you their trash. So this is a really big deal to consider. Other kind of facilities in Newark too. It's a natural gas plant. If you go beyond the Ironbound and you actually go into the industrial area in Newark, you really get to see like how crazy it is. Scrapyard, like metal scrap yards and all kinds of businesses and stuff like that. So Newark is 70% paved surface. So that means that there's only 30% of like green space where when the water falls, it can actually just seep into the ground. So that's a big part of like why a city might have flooding issues or issues with managing the stormwater properly. Even water quality issues can be impacted because if the stormwater, if the system is overrun by the amount of water that is receiving during the storm because it can't be absorbed, then that means the system is losing its capacity to actually do its process, so it can impact it. And then approximately 25% of children, or 1 in 4 children in Newark have asthma. 15% of the city has tree canopy, so tree canopy is different than green space because canopy actually, like I said, that helps with protecting from the sun, and it also absorbs water. Trees are a natural, they call green infrastructure. You'll hear that terminology about sustainability planning, green infrastructure. So trees are nature's natural green infrastructure. The roots absorb water. The leaves provide surface area that absorb water, and the leaves provide canopy or shade to actually cool the environment. And then every year, every few months, not even a year, I hear about another condition that's being linked to pollution, a lot of air pollution, like air pollution being linked to things like kidney disease and some kind of like mouth cancer, all different kinds of crazy things, heart attacks, heart disease, if not all a lifestyle factor. And so it's a big thing that we have to consider, like how are these decisions actually impacting human beings? Which generally is not talked about. So this came from the this came from the American Lung Association, and it shows the infographic that they published of the health risks from ozone pollution and particulate pollution. So that report card I showed earlier was specifically about ozone pollution, because there are different types of pollution. I don't want to get all into the weeds, talk about different kinds of pollution. You're bored. But they basically identified that all of these conditions are associated with both ozone and particulate pollution, except for lung cancer. So all of these different conditions, premature death, developmental harm, reproductive harm, asthma attack, wheezing and coughing, shortness of breath, cardiovascular harm, susceptibility to infections, lung and tissue redness, swelling, is all associated with ozone pollution. So it's a major factor, major risk factor. And then below that, I included also a headline from Forbes, which is just from last year, on a stat that says there are 6 million deaths worldwide attributed to air pollution. I think it's 200,000 in the state, in the United States. So we generally do not factor that into, like, you'll never have somebody call it death on their death certificate say air pollution, right? It's never gonna happen. So it's just like, oh, they got sick. But it's not that simple. And you can make these correlations. I mean, this is the in-depth study that the American Lung Association did, and they just published in 2018. So you definitely follow up if you wanted to find out more. But even in this report, and this just tells you the urgency of climate change, the American Lung Association, one of their statements, the State of the Air 2018 found that ozone pollution worsened significantly 2014 to 2016 compared to the previous report. While improvements continued in a year-round particle pollution and fewer episodes of high particle days, this year's reports continued evidence that the United States must continue to fight climate change and support and enforce the Clean Air Act in order to protect the nation from unhealthy air. So that was like one of the first statements in this report, that the American Lung Association is urging us to address climate change. And then the annual State of the Global Air Report, this came from this Forbes article. The annual State of the Global Air Report was published on Tuesday by the Health Effects Institute and found that over 95% of the world's population is breathing unhealthy air. Long-term exposure to air pollution contributed to the deaths of 6.1 million people in 2016 with strokes, heart attacks, lung disease, and lung cancer, causing many of them. Air pollution is now the 4th highest cause of death worldwide, trailing smoking, high blood pressure, and diet, with the majority of deaths recorded in poorer nations. As I said earlier, we do the polluting, we're the ones with like 2.5 cars to a house, and I think they said, like, if the average human being had the amount of space that the average American has, we need 7 planets. And so we don't realize it. I also heard an interesting stat from he's like some kind of landscape architect, who said that if the state of Texas was built with the density of Barcelona, we could fit the entire world population. That baffled my mind. I'm still trying to like put my head around that, but like that we just don't think like how much sprawl we have in the United States, and if you look at the whole country of France, like how much smaller it is than like a lot of European countries like that. So something that we should consider in terms of like our actual carbon footprint and what our impacts are in the world. So I wanted to talk about ozone impacts to the ecosystem, because one of the things inside the This Changes Everything documentary trailer is like, human beings, we do not control the planet. We do not control the environment, nor can we. If you think you can control the environment, I invite you to get into the ocean. That's where you really want to know who's in control. You get in the ocean. The ocean came and swallowed the whole, just people just disappeared, never to be found again. And people actually think they can like orchestrate and like control the environment, as if humans are the puppet masters in the environment. We are a part of the environment. We are part of the ecosystem. We don't control the ecosystem, we belong to it. Like, and so whatever impacts the ecosystem eventually will impact us. So like anything that will kill an insect in small amounts will kill you in large amounts. Right, so you have to just think about that and also consider if it's doing that to an insect, you can probably kill them fast, incrementally, day by day, year over year, constant exposure, what that does to people's health. But beyond that, I wanted to say, so from this slide, it says when there's not enough ozone, or when enough ozone is absorbed by a leaf, it can reduce photosynthesis, the process that plants use to convert sunlight to energy to live and grow. It can slow plant growth and increase the susceptibility to disease, damage from insects and other pollutants in severe weather. So it's a big deal. And actually in Weequahic Park, anybody here familiar with Weequahic Park, Newark, Weequahic Park? Yeah. So it's two of these Olmsted parks in Newark that were designed by the same person who built Central Park. One of them is Weequahic Park, the other one is Branchbrook Park. Both of them are county-owned parks. Weequahic Park has a golf course. It's on the borderline of North and Hillside. But there, the longtime Park Association president is a guy named Wilbur McNeil. He's like in his 80s now, and he recently stepped down. But he always said, like, if you look at those trees in Weequahic Park, and you look at trees in another part of the state that's like the same type of tree of a similar age, you can tell the condition of the trees in Weequahic Park are not healthy. And he always attributed to being such close proximity to the airport and the planes flying overhead of the park. And then looking into this ozone and the fact that actually Newark and Essex County has had ozone levels over the regulation standards for like years now, I'm wondering like if this is really the issue. Like, is that actually affecting the tree's ability to absorb sunlight, to properly do photosynthesis, and then like you said, if the plants are getting weaker, that means that if I know it, these elected officials gotta know they got staffs and personal assistants and all kind of stuff. I know they bring them briefing reports and telling them this stuff. And I kind of answered my own question. Are we heating the water? That was supposed to be heating, not heating. Heating the water in New Jersey, yes and no. Mostly no. And this is some of the headlines I took just in the last year. This is all in the last year. Literally these two, or actually these three from this year. So, proposed Meadowlands plant would be New Jersey's biggest greenhouse gas polluter. A dozen power plant and pipeline projects could derail Phil Murphy's clean energy goals. Amazon just visited New Jersey, and the state is offering a $7 billion incentive to land HQ2. Other states are polluting our air. Now New Jersey is suing to get much needed relief. And then New Jersey joins multi-state plan to curb pollution from trucks, buses, and other vehicles. I kind of pulled out these different headlines that just show like, it's kind of like they're talking about both sides there. I don't see how you could still be investing in fossil fuel infrastructure in the 21st century. Brand new fossil fuel infrastructure. To me, that's like if I told you, meet me in the hallway after this, we're gonna have a conversation. I want some investors to come help me open up a VCR repair shop. Right? I don't understand who is still building brand new fossil fuel infrastructure in the 21st century. I don't understand that. Upkeeping existing fossil fuel infrastructure until we have renewable infrastructure, that's something different. Building a whole new power plant, that's actually on the table as a consideration. Fortunately, a good number of communities up here have high home ownership rate and more community engagement, higher percentage of a white population, higher income population. Not that it's all of the neighborhoods around the Meadowlands, but those people will more than likely have enough capacity within their community to have enough people to go to meetings and like protest and give testimony and all kinds of stuff, organize a block and all kinds of things. A lot of times where people on lower income communities may not have the same kind of capacity to do those things. That don't mean they're gonna win, because I really don't know who this company is behind this project, what kind of influence they have, what kind of money they have, none of that stuff. And then I've been to some meetings on these pipelines in New Jersey, which predate this current government, to be fair. These initiatives, but you know, in theory, I guess if he was against it when he came in, he could have chosen he was going to shut it down. Like, I don't know if y'all remember this, but when Chris Christie came out of office, they were already spending money on building a tunnel between New York and New Jersey. They already had spent some money on stuff, and he shut down the project, like, right in the middle of it, and just, okay, well, it's called the ARC Tunnel Project, I think, or something. Now they're just getting back to it with all of this New Jersey transit mess. And then Amazon, $7 billion. Can we put $1 billion into like renewable energy in New Jersey? Like, can we open up some plants that's building like solar panels and, you know, I don't know, trying to figure out how we can get some more plumbers, because apparently like there's a shortage of plumbers, or like the things, the kind of jobs we need for the future are going to be the jobs that's going to heal this planet. People who are experts on trees, people who are experts on soil, people who are experts on, and it don't have to be all college education, people who are experts on water quality. I got to actually hear when I was in California for a conference, a woman who was at the Dakota, I don't know, Standing Rock. If you guys heard of Standing Rock. Yeah, so I didn't go, some of my colleagues for Ironbound Community Corporation, I think they got to go for a little bit, but I met a woman who said she was there, and she was like, you know, traditionally in like native culture, she said it was no such thing as a water quality test. She said, you want to know if the water was good, if the fish was good, then the water was good. And we can't do that anymore, but it's like the things that the money will allocate to like what we think is hot and like business and like maintaining the status quo is scary to me. And then like every time you have a conversation about something related to climate change, how are we gonna pay for it? How are we gonna pay for it? That's the conversation. And it's absurd to me. So I don't also understand how we're gonna sue if we're not leading by example. We're gonna sue somebody else for polluting us while we continue to pollute ourselves. So this is a couple of things that bother me. So think this second to last slide. So basically, it's just that market approach is limited. We cannot continue to expect the market to be like, oh, well, the market is going to solve it. Who is the market? The market doesn't have a brain, doesn't have a heart, doesn't have a spirit. Corporations are not people. Like, the market has fiduciary responsibility to its investors and its bottom line and its projections, and it does not care about anything else outside of that. Just as that's how it's created. So this is just a few different things that I found in an article written in 2000 about how the market approach is limited for climate change. Everything else I really pulled out for this presentation like within the last 5 years, but I was looking for like what's the limitations in these market approaches to climate change, and this guy's article, journal article from 2000 from Tufts University, was like really the only thing I could find. But basically it's like large irreversible changes must be prevented. So like if the market is just allowed to run itself, then companies do whatever they want to do. They'll do whatever they want to do, and there'll be like no regulations around how much environmental damage can happen. Because what he was saying is like there's a lot of trial and error. Sometimes you don't know that you made a mistake until you do it the first time. So if you continue to let the market operate like that, that'll happen over and over again. And then where's the money supposed to be to repair that? Many decisions have future consequences. A lot of investors not thinking about the future. Tell them Some people are motivated by it, the fact that you think their grandchildren or your children won't have a safe place to live. Some people are like, well, I won't be here for that. Some people, you know, they like, you know, whatever their religious belief is, they think we won't need this planet anymore. You know, it's all different kinds of mindsets out here that give people a sense of that they don't need to have a sense of urgency about this. The market is unreliable, so volatile market prices can cause wastefulness, allocation of resources, and evidence suggests that public spending and investments remain more effective than market-based approaches. And then, so I'm saying that the market approach doesn't work, and I'm pointing you to the cumulative impacts approach, which is part of the legislation we passed in the city of Newark. Still needs work, but cumulative impacts is basically the idea that no pollutant operates like in a vacuum, right? That you have multiple different pollutants or socio-economic or environmental factors that are creating a cumulative impact on a person and their individual body or a environment, like the city of Newark. So a lot of times when the Environmental Protection Agency gives out permits, they say, okay, you have this kind of facility, you are going to be emitting this type of pollution. This is what the law says that you can emit for your type of facility. It doesn't say, oh, well, where's your facility going to be located? What's the air quality of that, where it's going to be located? How is your facility going to impact the existing terrible air quality? What's the other type of pollutants there in relation to your pollutants, and what's the effect of those pollutants mixing together? Nobody knows. We're just playing Russian roulette. And so cumulative impacts looks at past action. So Newark already has a terrible environmental legacy, like I said, river, all this stuff. These different factories is crazy. And then from proposed projects, it can have an impact. From other present actions, so things that are already approved, that are in progress, and then future actions. So all of these things together, and these are like decisions or actions, but it's constantly happening at the same time. That a person lives on a block next to a body shop, down the street from a tire place, around the corner from a, something else, and no trees on their block, and airplanes flying over their house every 3 minutes. And that's a cumulative impact. Then you're stressed out, you're working minimum wage. They say you got to work 90 hours a week in order to pay for a one-bedroom apartment on minimum wage. So and that's on average. So that's not New Jersey. And so, because New Jersey is pretty expensive in relation to the other parts of the country. But this is a thing that we have to consider. Like, there is a cumulative effect of the mixing of these pollution and these socioeconomic factors, because your quality of life is the interplay of the natural environment, which is nature, the built environment, which is this building, and the social environment, which is the interplay of you and other human beings in nature. But if you're not healthy, or the air quality where you live is bad, maybe you don't go outside so much. Maybe you don't interact with people. Now you isolated. If you're a senior and you got emphysema or COPD or something like that, that's creating more isolation, and you might be in a state of because obviously your emotional or your psychological state can dictate your will to live or how you feel emotionally. So it's really a big deal. So we have to consider these things. And so this is the way forward, is that we can't have these conversations in a vacuum about oh, well, what does the market say, and how is it going to affect the market? What does the stocks market say? What did this happen? The market is an insufficient, inadequate measure of dictating success for humanity. It's not equipped to tell you that. The market and society are two different things. So this is my suggestions, the way forward. That's it.